Fintech will transform international business. The question is, how?
To answer this question, we welcome
Jay Singh Arun, Senior Director at IBM and co-author of the book Blockchain for Business.
Enrique Lizazo Almos, member of the Governing Board and Treasurer at the European Quantum Industry Consortium.
Nir Netzer, Chairman of the Board at the Israeli Fintech Association.
And from our Fintech Academy, Executive Director Tommy Marshall.
I am an international business student, and I'm very excited to participate in this promising conversation.
A unique event powered by Room, highly engaging tri-dimensional web collaboration.
Send your questions to the participating experts now.
How Fintech will transform international business. A Q&A session between students and experts.
Video on demand, available January 2022.
For more information, talk to your international business instructor.
All right, let's start then. We're going to begin with Jai Arun, who will be giving us a bit of a breakdown on blockchain and the future of blockchain technology and how it will impact international business efforts and the fintech community at large.
Thank you, Enrique. This is a pleasure to be here today and sharing some of the thoughts on blockchain technology and how it can help in the fintech, but more importantly in the international business. So given the topic of blockchain, if I could describe, it's a distributed ledger technology. And in a nutshell, it has few elements that other technologies do not have it. And if I could just quickly help you summarize those things, it brings, beyond the distributed ledger, it brings some of the elements like security, privacy, by having every transaction encrypted in this technology. And then there's a concept of trust, which is the parties who are involved in a business transaction, there has to be a consensus built around them and having a transaction validated before it's posted on this ledger. And then last but not least is the concept of smart contracts, which is basically enabling the automated execution of things as long as business conditions, legal terms are met, then a particular business transaction can automatically be executed. So keeping those elements in mind, blockchain technology brings a comprehensive capability in terms of enabling our business transactions to drive the transparency, which I think in many cases we are running a lot of issues because we don't have them. Example I was sharing earlier is could be specific to, let's say, a manufacturer in China and an organization in the United States, and they would like to have a trade in between them. Currently, they do not know each other, they do not trust each other, so there are multiple parties involved in between them. And that's where you see issuing bank, advising bank, working on letter of credit. Then you have other organizations like shipping line carrier companies, the freight forwarders, the truck companies, warehouse, ports, and custom authorities, all of them, everyone has to play their part in this transaction in between these two organizations having a trade satisfied. And imagine all of that can be a single transaction on blockchain. Based on these multiple parties, what activity they have to perform, they can make sure that that's happening and moving to the next step. So basically, imagine this concept of digitizing the supply chain is the concept in this use case, or maybe digitizing a financial trade between the organizations and among the organizations, right?
Certainly. Just as a quick question, maybe you can answer in a minute or so. Smart contracts, there's a lot of hype around smart contracts. And how do you think that adding that to different blockchains will help to connect us globally?
So smart contracts, as I mentioned, so let's say I'll simplify again in taking an example. So let's say, Enrique, you have a car that you have would like to sell, and you want to sell that car for $1,000, and you have put a place in the business transaction that if someone is a buyer who has $1,000 with a verified entity, bank or anyone, and they would like to purchase this car, and they have put their bid, as long as those conditions are met, this transaction should automatically fulfill. The car as an asset should be transferred from Enrique to the other person who's buying it. So this is the kind of concept that how can you write this business language into a technology and a code in the business that will enable you to make that transaction happen. And I think this is very, very powerful, that how can you even put the legal terms in place so that you can have those business legal conditions are meeting and making the transactions or contracts automatically be executed. So that powerful capability by default in the smart contracts can enable, I think, multiple things to be faster, right? Faster doing the business with anything, the legal and contractual agreements and those things. So I think it has a far more, you can say, opportunity in terms of finding those inefficiencies in our system, the times that they are taking in order to process and execute few legal and business contracts. This simplifies them and helps them with the other aspects that we mentioned from blockchain technology in general, like trust and transparency all across in the systems, transactions among the participants. I think it presents a lot of new venues for us to find new opportunities and do things differently that we haven't been able to imagine before.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your presence here, Jai. It's been great to hear blockchain and the future of that technology being developed. Say hi to your folks at IBM.
Thank you.
We will transfer now to Nir. So give us a little bit of a rundown on the technology that's built there.
In Israel, you can find many different fintech startups running here. I mean, there are, I think, close to 1,000 fintech startups in different subsegments of fintech. So we can take a look at payment solutions, lending solutions, insurtech solutions, chain-based solutions, and different solutions that definitely support the financial industry as a whole. And when I say the financial industry, so we can talk about traditional financial institutions such as the banking industry, insurance industry, investments, or credit card companies, but we can also discuss about different newcomers that we have around this neighborhood. It can be cryptocurrency exchanges, can be different neobanks and challenger banks that are always looking for different technologies to adopt or to invest in. And we're definitely in the middle of this junction in Israel when we see many different solutions that are sprouting. Many of them are solutions that are managing back-end performances and different processes that are conducted at the back end, and many solutions are taking care of different aspects of the front end of the client engagement, KYC, know your client, KYB, know your business, KYT sometimes, know your transaction, and different onboarding mechanisms, smart onboarding mechanisms, and client engagement tools can help the financial industry to attract more clients and to have better conversion rates when talking to financial customers. As you probably know, the financial industry is not a very appealing one, and when you buy insurance, it's not like buying a Tesla. That's why different insurers try to be very approachable and very user-friendly to their end users. And several examples we can see in this space is, for example, Lemonade. Lemonade is an Israel-based, currently traded traded company in the U.S. market, which has tremendous successful after its IPO to serve insurance clients, and they actually taking care of different claims for insurance in a matter of seconds. And this is a very innovative way different aspects of the insurance industry because there is no any human interference in the process. And this is very innovative because it's all AI-based process with bunch of paperwork involved. With that, and even though there are mountains of bureaucracy to solve, this is done by machines only and on a very quick manner. So this is one example to a very good, very stable, very successful company that serving US clients that actually used to work in Israel, and the R&D center is still in Israel actually. Another example is eToro. Maybe some of you heard the name eToro before. Yep. eToro is a maybe similar to what Robinhood is trying to bring to the trading arena. With that, we're talking about social trading, social-based trading. I can actually copy the trading of an experienced trader and trade like him. And this will, this may cost a commission, of course. I should pay him a commission because I'm copying his steps in the stock exchange. Still, my yield, my expected yield, can be very good. eToro is a very interesting example for a company that actually made its breakthrough in the global market through a SPAC, Special Purposes Acquisition Company. This was done earlier this year, and with a tremendous achievement with a valuation of $10.4 million, $1 billion, of course. And this is a very interesting step for this company because this is a company that up until today, up until this move, they were making private placements and raising capital in the private market, and here they are traded in the US market, in the US stock exchange, with a really tremendous and remarkable success, and now serving really hundreds of thousands of clients. So this is a very good example of an Israeli company serving the end client, the trader, which is the retail trader, you and me. Another very good example, which is a B2B one, serving different companies, is Payoneer. Payoneer also went through SPAC to the US stock exchange with a valuation of $3.3 billion earlier this year. Actually, it was the first fintech company, if I'm not mistaken, to have a SPAC process in place earlier this year. It was really when SPAC started to boom, and we saw many different SPAC processes right after that. eToro was following this one, for example. And Payoneer is basically serving different organizations that having troubles to shift and to make payments from one country to another. So they basically save a lot of cost, and not just the cost, it's also the time that they save with international wire transfers. There is always a problem with international wire transfers, and I think that Jal can relate also here when I'm saying when blockchain technology can solve also this specific problem. Actually, blockchain-based transaction can happen much faster and in a much cheaper, in a cost-saving manner.
As you mentioned earlier, you said that there's a slight difficulty in international transactions, especially like wire transfers and things like that. So, fintech, at least in my opinion, has a very fertile ground for exploration into finding excellent solutions for all these international problems. So we also have Enrique Lizaso Olmos here, who is from the Quantum Industry Consortium. If you would like to explain a little bit about what they do, that would be fantastic. So Enrique, take it away.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to this event. Regarding the European Quantum Industry Consortium, which is the first thing I have to talk about. I mean, this is a consortium that has been just promoted by the European Union to try to give an impulse to the quantum technologies in Europe. Just trying to put all the people that are working in this particular field, not only from the new companies and the small companies, but also to the traditional or more traditional large European companies, just together to create a momentum in the quantum industry to try to just push forward the development and the adoption of these technologies in Europe. Just a bit of story. I mean, in 2017, the European Commission decided to put together to set up a flagship, which is a financial instrument, the largest financial instrument that the European Union has. Is a 1 billion euros financial instrument, just to give this push forward to the quantum technologies. At that time, most of the focus of this flagship, the quantum flagship, was put to the scientific, to say something, part, and especially to communications part. Now, 2 years later, situation has changed, definitely. On the other side of the Atlantic, in the United States, I mean, the rate of innovation has been higher in the industry, and we have seen the first unicorns in quantum technologies, but not exactly in communications, but in quantum computing. Well, the European Commission decided that maybe we need to do something also different, just involving the largest companies we have here in Europe in this particular field, and that was the born of the Quantum Industry Consortium. Now we have about 120 something companies there, so it's a large world consortium. Is larger than the one from the United States that they have, and the larger than the one they have in Japan, and is larger than the one that Canada has, and involves not only the small companies like me, like Multiverse. We do quantum computing. We are a 30 people company, and also the companies like SAP, and also like Bosch or like Atos, who has thousands of employees, and we work together just to try to give push forward to these technologies, to coordinate among ourselves, and also just to set up standards and these things. Okay, this initiative has been completely successful. Now, regarding quantum computing in finance and so on, quantum computing is going to change nearly everything in those, let's say, problems and computations that are not feasible today. This is the power of quantum computing. There are a lot of problems that cannot be solved with classical computers and will never be solved, because the traditional computer is, let's say, sequential. I mean, you have to explore all the possibilities of a problem, of a portfolio optimization, of whatever, and quantum computing can explore that simultaneously. In fact, I mean, each time you put a qubit, which is the minimum unit of information inside a quantum computer, you multiply by 2 the number of possible scenarios you may just explore. So quantum computer, let's say, like IBM, with 127 qubits, can explore to rise to 127, an enormous number of possibilities, and more to come. Quantum computers are not exactly ready for all the problems as today, but I mean, all the problems regarding optimization, portfolio optimization, ETFs, I mean, and the killer app, according to the Boston Consulting Group, the capital allocation optimization. I mean, this can and will be solved by quantum computers, and that will divide the banks and the financial institutions between those who has just managed to run quantum computing well, and those who are lucky, because the ones who don't enter inside quantum computing and they are not lucky, so they are going to perish, according to the Boston Consulting Group. Okay, you may also use that in quantum machine learning. It's a quantum machine learning on steroids. That too, you may do something as today with the current quantum computers. I mean, very small, limited, noisy, and so on. And later we have some other problems that are not right today but will be in the future. Pricing. I mean, the computation of risk in some financial institutions. We all know what happens when the risk is not well computed, and some things happen, like the last crisis, financial crisis in 2008. Okay, and finally, ecosystem simulation. I mean, something as strange as simulating the weather, for example. Work with Bank of Canada. Cryptocurrency is possible that in the near future is going to fail or not. Okay, these are some possibilities. I think that I have said my time, so Thanks again.
At this point, probably many of you are wondering where to study FinTech. We welcome Tommy Marshall, Executive Director at the Georgia FinTech Academy, who will talk about some of the opportunities available to study this promising field.
There's great opportunities to learn more in depth about FinTech, certainly in what we offer in our university system here in Georgia through this program. We've addressed over 3,400 students with through the 9 courses that we have available. Some of those courses, 4 of them go into quite a bit of depth around digital payments. As we were just talking about Payoneer as example, phenomenal digital payments company. There's many to be referred to that would be familiar to all of you. PayPal, Visa very much considers themselves a tech company, and others large and small, from Square, Cash App to really remarkable business-to-business payment companies. So digital payments has been an important area of the educational offerings, and then we've also got 5 other courses that provide a foundation of understanding of FinTech. There's one focused on banking and FinTech, so it's staying in the deposit lending zone in the discussion. There's one that kind of looks at technologies, starts with technologies like cloud, like distributed ledger that we were talking about earlier, artificial intelligence, and the impact that these technologies have on financial services. And then, of course, you can't teach FinTech without having some type of course that addresses information security, an area that Israel probably stands out as one of the leading countries in the world in really supporting and furthering innovations with regards to information security. And so information security is critical, vital. There is no FinTech without strong information security. So that's been also an important area of emphasis for our educational efforts here in our university system. But beyond what we're doing here in Georgia with our university system, there's also meaningful educational offerings throughout the world. And one other reason this is happening is because FinTech as an industry has become one of the largest industries of employment in the world. There's a recent study that just came out last month from CFTE that in their study they were asserting with some reasonable facts to back it up that there are around 300,000 employees in the FinTech field in the world today. And if you just look at employment at some of the different nation states, that starts to that sort of number starts to rank up, pretty high. So it's a really vibrant space, one that is really, of course, going to continue to transform not just financial services, but other areas and industries that rely on money movement and finance to function.
So at this point, I'd like to thank everyone for joining. Tommy, Nir, and Jai, thank you so much for coming here to our first roundtable regarding FinTech and international business and the crossover and the mutual impact that they have on each other. So thank you so much for your insights, and have a great one.